Most natural disasters happen suddenly and destroy everything in their path. One of these natural disasters is a flash flood, which can kill a lot of people. Flash floods can be caused by a rapid flow of raging water in low-lying areas that rises as a result of dam breaking, heavy rainfall, or an excessive discharge of high water in rivers. Flash floods are hard to predict because there are so many things that can cause them. In today's video, we'll look at some of the world's craziest flash floods, so make sure you stick with us till the end. Number 7. Europe Flood 2002. In August 2002, Central and Eastern Europe were devastated by floods which had not been seen for over 100 years. The torrential rainfall began in the Alps, where most of the winter snow had already melted, leaving bare ice behind. This meant that the earth could absorb nothing, and rainfall poured straight off the mountains as through down a chute. The worst affected countries were Italy, Germany, Austria, the Czech Republic, and Russia, while Spain, Slovakia, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Ukraine also suffered. Bridges and roads, as well as factories and homes, were partially or wholly destroyed, and thousands of people were evacuated. Dresden was badly hit when the River Elbe reached record heights, but despite damage to notable buildings, such as the Semper Opera House, its world-famous treasures were saved. Some regions of the Czech Republic received 4 times the amount of rainfall expected in August in only 36 hours. Many historic buildings in Prague were damaged, with much of the old town underwater, and the metro system partially closed when 17 stations were flooded. Buildings old and new collapsed, and several chemical factories were inundated, raising fears of contamination of the River Elbe by dioxins, mercury, and other toxic substances. Some rivers completely changed course, taking local residents by surprise. Number 6. The Jacobs Creek Flood 2003. The Jacobs Creek Flood, also called the Kansas Turnpike Flash Flood, happened on the night of August 30th, 2003, 11 miles southwest of Emporia, Kansas, on the Kansas Turnpike, Interstate 35. From 7 to 8 p.m., a slow-moving, low-top storm with very heavy rain developed over central Kansas. It stayed over eastern Chase and western Lyon counties for several hours. The rain rate at the headwaters of Jacobs Creek is estimated to be several inches per hour, with a total of almost 6 inches estimated to fall by 8 p.m. The Jacobs Creek flash flood on the Kansas Turnpike took the lives of 5 people, including 4 children and their mother, and another man who was killed while attempting to save 4 people who were trapped in their vehicles. Along the creek, it also did about $250,000 worth of damage to property. Downstream of the turnpike, the water level in Jacobs Creek stayed high for several days, making it harder to get things back to normal. People in cars that were badly damaged by the flood were found up to 2 miles from the turnpike, and the last victim was found in a retention pond on September 2nd. Number 5. The Boscastle Flood 2004. In the small Cornish village of Boscastle, there was one of the worst floods and rescue operations that ever happened in peacetime. In August 2004, the village flooded, sending cars and buildings into the water and putting people's lives at risk. Over 60 millimeters of rain fell in 2 hours, which is about a month's worth of rain. During the day, there were a lot of tourists in Boscastle because it was in the middle of the summer vacation season. This meant that more people than usual had to be moved out of the area. The old road bridges stopped a lot of the trash that was being moved by the river. 75 cars, 5 caravans, 6 buildings, and several boats were washed into the sea. About 100 homes and businesses were destroyed, and some had to be demolished to make way. Trees were uprooted and debris was spread over a large area. A fleet of 7 Westland Sea King helicopters worked from mid-afternoon until 2:30 a.m. to save about 150 people who were clinging to trees, building roofs, and cars. There were no major injuries or deaths, but the damage was thought to cost £15 million. Number 4. Southwest Russia Flood 2012. One of the deadliest flash floods in history occurred in early July 2012 in southwest Russia, mostly in Krasnodar Krai near the Black Sea. The Hydrometeorological Center of Russia says that some southern parts of the country got the same amount of rain in one night as they would get in 5 months. A total of 171 people died because of this flood. Alexander Chakyov, the governor of Krasnodar Krai, said, "Nothing like this has happened in the last 70 years. The flood was caused by a storm that hit Krasnodar hard and dumped nearly half a year's worth of rain on the area in just 2 days. The floods affected close to 30,000 people. Most of the victims lived in the city of Krymsk, which is 80 kilometers from Krasnodar and 15 from Novorossiyak. It is at the foot of a small mountain range that runs along the Black Sea coast. Eyewitnesses said the flood hit the city on July 7, 2012 around 2 a.m. when most people were sleeping. The flood wave reached a height of 23 feet, which filled many houses to the ceiling and killed people who couldn't get out in time. There were also deaths near the Black Sea in the resort town of Gilanchik and the port city of Novorossiysk. Number 3. Argentina flood 2013. On the evening of April 1st, 2013, a strong storm moved into the northeast of Buenos Aires province. It started to rain hard, and the rain was at its worst between 3 and 5:30 a.m. At the height of the storm, you could only see 500 meters. In total, between 160 and 190 millimeters of rain fell on Buenos Aires because of the storm. This is the most rain that's ever fallen in April. The average amount of rain that falls in Buenos Aires City in April is 96 millimeters. In the nearby city of La Plata, which is the capital of the province of Buenos Aires, about 400 millimeters of rain fell in 2 hours. Flash floods and power outages were caused by the heavy rain. About 3,000 people were moved out of Greater La Plata. Many of them waited for hours for help in trees and on the roofs of their flooded homes. The power went out in half the city, large parts were underwater, and people could be seen wading through water up to their waist, and almost all the cars were submerged. The oil refinery in the city caught fire because of an unusual amount of rainwater and power outages. And the La Plata suburb of Tolosa was surrounded by floodwaters, which stopped 50 cars from moving. Santiago Martorelli, who was in charge of the La Plata Partido cabinet, said that the storm was a disaster that has never happened before. In Buenos Aires, more than 500,000 people were without power, and a local reporter wrote about the situation, saying a record torrential rainstorm unleashed all its power, turning the city into a macabre version of Venice instead of the dry capital of Argentina. Between July 17th and July 31st, 2021, heavy rains caused flooding in China's Henan province. On July 20th, 201.9 millimeters, or 7.95 inches of rain fell in 1 hour in Jingzhou, the provincial capital. This was the most rain ever measured since measurements began in 1951. On August 2, 2021, the provincial government said that 302 people had died, 292 of them in Jingzhou, and that more than 50 people were missing. Later investigations showed that provincial officials had lied about how many people had died, bringing the total number of deaths to 398. Floods forced 815,000 people to leave their homes and affected 14.5 million people in the province. Extreme weather brought on by climate change was thought to have made the floods even worse. Number 1. Yellowstone National Park Flash Flood 2022. In the summer of 2022, Yellowstone National Park and the areas around it were hit by flash floods that were very bad. One Gardner, Montana resident caught a shocking video of a house being swept away by the flood. Other videos showed how the flood tore through the park and damaged park buildings. After the flood, about 10,000 people had to leave the park. For about a week, many parts of the park were closed. More than 90% of the park was back open and usable after about 3 weeks. Some areas are still affected, but the park is working to fix everything that was broken by the flood so it can run at full capacity again. Alright everyone, we've come to the end of today's video. Did you guys know about any other deadly flash floods? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, then please give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to keep up with all of our latest videos. And we'll see you next time.